ADHD Rewired, episode 553. Since 2014, this has been the podcast for ADHD adults who have really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. You can learn about our coaching and accountability groups, our virtual co-working community, and more, all at ADHDrewired.com. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Learn more about our offerings, including our quarterly live Q&As, get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mentioned on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter, and more, all at ADHDrewired.com. And if this is your first time listening, welcome. Don't forget to hit subscribe or follow on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Before we dive in, I want you to hear this.
My biggest takeaway is that everything is easier with fellow travelers, even more so when I know that they're sharing my struggle. Since the time that this group started, my wife has said the changes have been that apparent to everybody around me.
That's the power of coaching, structure, and real ADHD community. Do it for yourself and do it for your loved ones. We just extended registration. Our next coaching group registration event is Thursday, July 10th at 1 p.m. Central. Don't want to wait until the 10th? Next day, one-on-one registration calls are also available. We start July 24th. More info at the website, coachingrewired.com. To start pre-registering, add your name to our interest list at coachingrewired.com. More info at the break. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Always happy to welcome back to ADHD Rewired my friend, Ari Tuckman. If you don't know Dr. Tuckman, he's a psychologist, international presenter, ADHD thought leader, and he's the author now of 5 books, including the brand new, the ADHD Productivity Manual. So I think we're going to be talking about all things productivity today.
Yeah, I think we are. It's good to be here. It's always good to hang out with you, whatever excuse we have to do it.
Exactly. Whatever it is, whether it's at a one of the chat conferences and all the stuff that we get up to there or here. So let's dive right in. So this is your 5th book.
It is.
You're tackling productivity on this one. So why did you want to do a book on productivity?
It's so much of ADHD, of living with ADHD, of managing ADHD. Like, it's about productivity, right? It's about getting things done in the way that certainly you hope to, but probably also the way other people would hope for you. So that is so much of what I talk about all day, right? I mean, like you, right? I spend all day talking to clients. That's really kind of what I do. And so many conversations are about getting things done or the fallout from not getting things done. And I don't know, like I did this kind of deep dive on everything that goes into whether you do or don't get something done. And I just wanted to kind of put it all into one place.
What were some of the sort of key discoveries that you've made from your research, all the client work you've done? Because you've been in this space, I think, longer than I have, actually.
Yeah, 25 years. And I've actually did the math. I've done more than 40,000 client sessions in that time. So yeah, which is sort of crazy. I was like, what? I did it twice.
Wow.
Yeah. So you begin to see some patterns and stuff. And I mean, the big thing about productivity is there's a lot that affects whether you're going to get it done. And it's both simple things like, I don't know, do you get distracted in the moment, right? Your phone beeps, you were the dog or a kid or a coworker. How much sleep did you get last night? Did you take your meds? You even know you need to take meds. What's your mindset about it, right? Are you sort of psyching yourself out? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Is it unclear what you're supposed to do, right? Like, I know my boss said something, but I'm not really sure here. You know, there's like the social expectations of it and how you manage that. Do you have the social capital to say, sorry, I don't think I can do this? There's things like, I don't know, do you have a functioning schedule and to-do list and maybe an alarm or two in your life, right? It's like all of these different things that all feed into that one moment, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one.
You know, I've been in the kind of the productivity porn space. I mean, I like
Hmm.
to call it that because it's like it's so alluring of like, oh, what's the
Yes.
next big thing that's going to help me for the next week, right? And,
Right.
until
This will solve every problem in my life.
it's
This is it right here.
right. I know that you know because you see me present on productivity apps and like, and I've even fallen into that. Like, I get really excited about different tools and stuff, and it's like at the end of the day, we're left with ourselves
Yeah.
and our brain. And so, what are some of like the trends that you've been seeing?
The thing about the trends is like what is old is new kind of thing. Like at the end of the day, all of this stuff, it's really just tools, right? It's sort of different things that possibly help you be more productive, right? And like my favorite sort of line is I tried alarms, they don't really work for me. Right. But you could add in like I've tried getting things done. I've tried some app or some cult or something. And like everything can work, but the question is, does it work? And I think that with a lot of these tools, what they do is maybe they make you more aware. Oh, look at that. It's now, I set an alarm to do something at 11 and it's now 11, right? So maybe it makes you more aware. Maybe it helps with sort of planning, right? So I'm going to set up some stuff. I'm going to plan out my day and blah, 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 right? And that's all great. And certainly planning is important because it makes things more likely to happen. Certainly awareness is important because if 11 o'clock slides by unnoticed, right, then you're not going to do the thing at 11 that some earlier time you thought you should. But what they don't do is give you motivation, right? They don't get you over that hump that here I am right now. Now it's time to do that thing, right? And of course, 10 o'clock you is super optimistic. And 11 o'clock you is kind of like, screw that guy. What the hell? Why does he do this to me?
I don't know if we've talked about this before. Do you see a difference between motivation and activation?
Hmm. Okay, tell me more. Yeah, I think there's an important distinction here. So yeah, what are you thinking?
Because that, one of the things that I've kind of been thinking about around this is that I think that we often will use the word
Hmm.
motivation, right? When we actually mean
Hmm.
activation, right? Like we do want to do the thing, but when that alarm or that goes off to cue us to do the thing, like the chemistry in our brain is just like, "Nah, not today."
Right.
Right? And it's not that we don't want to do it. It's that, it's that feeling of because we all have that feeling of when something actually feels somewhat easy to activate on because, all the
Hmm.
stars are aligned. We've slept well, we ate well, we've exercised, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, how do I harness this feeling? Because this is what I need to be doing like all the time. But that's not how ADHD life
Sure.
works.
Yeah. I think what's important in this is I think we often talk about motivation as if it is the only thing, right? In other words, it's all about having enough gas powering your actions. But we neglect the fact that there's also breaks, right? If I'm like really motivated to do something because I think it's important, and also I'm scared to death I'm going to screw it up because I don't know what I'm doing, like, I got a lot of gas power going, but I got more brakes, so I don't do anything. You know what I mean? So I think you gotta look at both sides of that, and I think that maybe that's the part as we're discussing this, I think, right? Like, maybe it's the brakes that too often gets ignored, or and I'm sort of talking this through. So there's also the other possibility where I'm kind of motivated to do this, but ooh, look at that over there, right? I'm more motivated to do that. So like that is
Or it's that temporal discounting. It's like we have now discounted our
yeah.
future self because right now, like this is exciting and
Yep,
it's on sale. So let's do
exactly.
it.
Exactly, right? This is how social media exists. So like it becomes this thing where the other thing has more motivating power or more activating power in that moment because it's always about like what wins in this moment, right? Which is about the competition then.
So when you're thinking about then about whether it's motivation or activation, I think that when I talk about this in my coaching groups, that like 90% of the strategies for managing ADHD are strategies around managing challenges with time and challenges with memory.
Mm,
And
mhm,
if people go, well, what about motivation? I was like, I think that's often a memory issue. We forget why we wanted to do
mm,
something. right?
Yeah,
So when that alarm goes off, or we look at the to-do list, we see the what. There's no connection to that emotional why when we see the what,
sure.
right?
Right.
And so one of the things that, and I don't know if you talk about this in your book, I really encourage people when they're writing their to-dos to not just write the what, but also include the why.
I think that is a really great idea. And it connects into a line I have, which is if you ask yourself, do I want to do this? Right. First of all, obviously, no. Right. Like, unless it's something fun, but you don't write down, do fun things. Right. So, like, no, you don't want to do it. But here's the deal, you don't want to do it later. But when you're jammed up against a deadline, you don't have a choice and it still sucks. Right. So, the better question to ask yourself is, what is the benefit of doing this? Which is your why. Right. We're talking about the same thing using different words for it, because that is the future benefit. This is how my life is better later. If I do this thing now, it's better for me afterwards versus what is most exciting right now. And the problem is with what is most exciting right now is the important stuff will always lose because there's so much other good stuff instead.
Yeah. So thinking about like those work situations, especially if you're not self-employed, where you
Mhm.
have to, the boss is telling you, you got to do this thing. And like you're writing your to-do list, you're trying to make it ADHD friendly for yourself. And you're like, why? I don't know why. Like, I think this is a
Sure.
dumb thing to do. Right. And so the why can then become because I don't
Yeah.
want to lose my job.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, right? Because the inherent why of my stupid boss thinks this is a good idea is not motivating, right? Nobody's going to get psyched by that. So it's instead, it could be like you said, right? I like getting a paycheck on Friday. That's kind of nice. It could be something a little bit further down the road of, I want to do well on this job so I can get a shot at some better job. I'm just paying my dues here. But it could also be, I want to see myself as a person who gets stuff done. Like that is important to me. I want to see myself as effective. Or maybe my boss is a jerk, but my coworkers, I like them, or I like my customers. And if I don't do this, they're gonna be the ones who suffer. Or I just want to get through my workday in as least stressed out a way. So when 5 o'clock hits, I can go home and have more to give my kids or my family or my friends or my other pursuits or right. So it's like finding other things to connect to if the task itself isn't that interesting. I would also say, as much as you can, don't burn a bunch of energy complaining to yourself about how stupid this, right? Because it is, right? Like, I'm not going to debate that it isn't stupid, but like, just like grumbling about it just makes you feel worse, right?
And if you think about it this way too, it's like you're actually spending time on that thing
Mm,
without actually getting any of that thing done,
right, right.
which is why do we want to do
Yeah.
that?
But it is a weird thing, right? Sometimes thinking about something or angsting about something feels like we're doing something, but we're not.
So, or sometimes I kind of look at you as the like biggest ADHD like ally of like since you're as an ADHD and a lot of ADHDers who have worked with mental health professionals who don't have ADHD often have this
Mhm.
this feeling of like they just don't get it.
Yeah.
I think from all of my experiences with you and everything I've seen you do and everything you've read, I'm like, okay, here's someone who's doesn't have ADHD who I actually think gets it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you have learned and have changed about your productivity approach to how you work and show up that you actually learned from ADHDers?
I think it's been to enjoy some of the process more.
Hmm.
I've always been a guy who's been very driven, and it served me very well in some ways and not well in others, and kind of having that right balance. And so, like, again, it's good and it's bad. And I think just being a bit more like, this is okay. Let's enjoy this moment. This is good also. And not always sort of thinking about the next thing that needs to be done. And of course, all this sort of, I don't know, like the praise and the good feelings that come from it, right? Because it is rewarding. But it's also kind of has made me think more about kind of this idea of like productivity, being more productive, but like to what end? You know what I mean? Like, why are you trying to be more productive? Why does it matter? How does it benefit you? Right.
Yes.
Certainly, in some ways, it does. And also, is it worth it, right? Because like at a certain point, it isn't, right? It's like I would rather put my time and mental energy into other things, right? So kind of finding that right balance, which I think is a struggle for everyone, and obviously at different stages of life that sort of can evolve. But I think especially if you've struggled with being underproductive, it gets even that much more loaded. And there's this kind of false idea that if I can really be on top of everything, then I will prove myself worthy, or then people will like me, or then I won't have ADHD, or what. And of course, that's like an empty pursuit because you'll never get there.
Oh, that is a very true struggle.
Mm,
It's the allure of success through, from being productive, but then the very sharp other side of that sword. It's like when the praise or the feedback that you're getting from that is positive, and it becomes almost like a drug,
yeah.
and you do more and more and more, and then you're suddenly out of gas, like so much so that it turns into burnout, which is
Mhm.
something that my listeners know that I have experienced over the last year or so.
Yeah.
We talked offline a bit about that, and it's so much of my thinking about productivity has changed because and has been informed by the experience of a prolonged period of burnout that I just kind of kept ignoring and pushing down. And I was like, "Oh, this is inconvenient because I have goals I gotta hit." Right. And it's like you can do it to a certain point,
Right.
but if you keep doing it, like your brain is just it's gonna, you know, say no. Like you can show up to your office, but you're going to just stare at your computer screen all day long and not get anything on your to-do list. And you're going to rinse and repeat
Sure.
until you give yourself a break. How do you
Yeah.
help people? I don't know if you talk about this in your book, to take breaks. Because I think taking breaks and good restorative rest is, I am learning and I'm trying to learn this for a long time. All right. That is one of the most important parts and most helpful parts of being productive.
Mm, it
Just giving
is.
your brain rest. How the hell do you do it?
Yeah. I mean, the easy answer is you say that this is important, right? And you actually then believe it when you say it, including when it's inconvenient and including when there's that pull of like, oh, okay, I'm just going to stay and get this done because it's not a sprint, right? Like every day, like the next day keeps coming. Part of being productive is doing the things that kind of set a good foundation, right? So, like I talk about sleep, diet, exercise, I'm always sort of harping on about that. Mindfulness, certainly, that's also a good thing. So, just generally kind of taking good care of yourself so that you bring more of your A game to things, which makes you more efficient. It also helps with like better, more creative, complex thinking. Cause like the worst thing is to be kind of running on empty, but slogging along. Like you're not getting anything great done and it's taking too long anyway. And you're miserable and not enjoying yourself either. It's like the worst of all combinations.
So how do you break that pattern if that's where you're at?
I think it's to recognize this isn't working,
Yeah.
right? Like this sucks on all fronts. I'm not putting out great work and I'm miserable and I'm not connecting to the people in my life who matter. So to sort of just get off the wheel and say, okay, I need to stop and reassess. Like, what am I doing here? Clearly too much. Some things need to go, like they need to go down the list, and some things need to get kicked off of the list. And as much as there's that thing of like, oh no, but I can't, they're all so important. Like the reality is, like, you're not getting half this stuff done anyway, right? So, like, don't lie to yourself that this is all going to get done because it isn't. It's just that circumstances will decide at the end of the day what didn't happen to have gotten done.
In our coaching groups, I have our members read the book The One Thing by Gary Keller, which has this focusing question in it, which asks what's the one thing you could
Mm,
do such by doing it makes everything else easier or necessary. But I also like to take sort of the kind of the flip of that question, or maybe it's a sideways version of the question, where it asks, because we've all had those days where it's like, yeah, we have 10 really, really important things that we got to get to today,
yeah.
and none of them get done. Right. So since we all can realistically say, yeah, we've had those days, asking ourselves the question, if we could only get one thing done today, what would it be?
Mm.
And then start there. right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how important the stuff is. We've all had those days where brain is not braining, right? And you got
Yeah.
to try again tomorrow.
And that is absolutely true. But also, this is every day, right? Because sometimes when people are drowning and having way too many things to do, right? Their to do list is 8 miles long and their schedule is jam packed. It's because they're not investing the sort of cognitive effort to think through, okay, what is more important than what needs to happen sooner, what needs to happen later, like what am I doing with all this? But also sometimes it's the emotional effort of this thing makes me uncomfortable but I still have to do it, or I hate not doing this thing but also I'm not going to, like, it ain't going to happen and I just need to kind of like feel that pain and let it go anyway, or I need to do this a little better than I want to, or I need to do a little worse than I want to, right? And that it takes real thought and effort to sort through what am I doing day by day, even when it's just a normal day. To not even talking about there's like crazy days. So there's that whole thing as well.
And what you just described is you said it as taking thought and effort, but what I'm hearing is that's all emotional self regulation.
It is. It totally is. Yeah. I mean, that is absolutely it. You got to think about it and put in the effort, but it's the emotional self regulation to stick in there and not just go, I'll just check my email. Right. And then we're like passively scrolling email rather than doing the hard work of whatever the other thing is.
I never have that problem.
Right.
I ignore my email like, without any skill. I mean, it just happens naturally.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. That will never be a problem.
social media maybe, but my email, I avoid
Right.
that. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to jump into talking about Ari's book, The ADHD Productivity Manual. So we will be right back. Okay, so if you are listening to this right now thinking that you relate a lot to this discussion, or thinking, I know what I should be doing, but I just can't get myself to do it, believe me, you are not alone. And that is exactly why I created ADHD Rewired's coaching and accountability groups. Our summer season kicks off July 24th with sessions Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. And we've extended pre-registration to give you a little extra time to take that next step. Our next live registration event is on Thursday, July 10th at 1 p.m. Central, 2 Eastern. And if that time doesn't work for you, you can also schedule a one-on-one registration call with me. So I just want to share with you a couple quick voices from our alumni who just completed the spring session.
I have new knowledge, new connections, new confidence.
I'm most proud of myself for how I've turned my business around.
The biggest thing I learned was that routines are good. And that has consistently been a bad word in my vocabulary. And that's changed. I'm really happy about that.
So if you're thinking about joining this group, I definitely think you should. If you're struggling with burnout, if you're struggling with executive function or emotional dysregulation, don't know how to write a to-do list, join the group and allow the collective experience really help you.
If you're thinking about joining this group, stop thinking, do it. There's no time like the present, do it.
And this is the kind of change that happens when you get real structure, real support, and a community that actually understands ADHD. So if you're done trying to brute force your way through ADHD and want momentum that sticks, come join us. Pre-register now at coachingrewired.com. Get on the interest list so you can start pre-registration. It takes about 30 minutes to go through the whole thing. And you'll have everything you need to take your first step by going to coachingrewired.com. Don't do this alone. Go to coachingrewired.com. Hey, also, if you are looking for ADHD support and would love to work with me one-on-one, I actually do have 2 openings right now for new one-on-one clients. So if you've been wanting more personalized support to help you build the structures, systems, and strategies that work for your ADHD brain, this is your chance to work directly with me. Spots are limited because I only have 2 openings right now. You can learn more or reach out on my website, ADHDrewired.com. Click on services. and schedule a initial call with me. And if you are looking for a way to get stuff done with other ADHD brains, come check out Adult Study Hall. Adult Study Hall is our virtual co-working community where you can body double with folks who get it. No awkward small talk, just a supportive, focused space where you can work alongside others. Whether it's answering emails, folding laundry, or working on a creative project, it all counts. We even have themed room for writing, planning, cleaning, and more. Come for the focus, stay for the community. Learn more and sign up at adultstudyhall.com. That's adultstudyhall.com. One quick update for our patrons. Last week's Patreon coaching call I needed to reschedule. It is rescheduled for Tuesday, July 1st, 3 p.m. Central. Normally we do it on the fourth Tuesday of every month, and that is the continued plan, but I had to reschedule it. You can become a patron and join me for a monthly coaching call. Go to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Your book, the ADHD Productivity Manual. Talk about that. How is it set up? How is it different than other productivity books?
I mean, so the first thing is for all of the books out there on ADHD, there's really not one of them that is just about productivity, right? Which I actually found kind of surprising.
Really?
Yeah. There's like, obviously there's productivity stuff in there, but it's not just about like getting things done. So, but I break it into 7 sections. So things like, why does ADHD make it harder to get stuff done? Setting up a good work environment, using your tools, so like schedule to-do lists and alarms. I talk about having a strong mindset. So all the kind of psychology that goes into whether we get those gears turning or not. I go into the social side of productivity in terms of how do you deal with other people and how do you manage expectations and what do you do when you have to disappoint someone and all of that and the sort of faking and the masking and right. So 7 sections and 36 chapters, right? Short chapters. I'm not going to bore you to death. You can jump around to any chapter you want. And every chapter ends with a bunch of questions that I call put it to work, right? Where you really think about, what am I doing here? Like, here are some questions to ask and really start kind of thinking about how you're handling this, whatever this topic from the chapter is. And what are you going to do? Where are you going to do it? You know, when and why, right? So again, it's really aimed, it's not quite a workbook, but it sort of leans that way, right? It's about taking the ideas off of the page and putting it into your life where it actually does some good.
So the chapter that you said you have on the social part of productivity.
Yeah.
To me, that sounds very different than a lot of other productivity books I've read and listened to. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I actually have a whole section. I think there's like 4 or 5 chapters in that section. So it's some of the stuff that we've already talked about, right? So kind of like people pleasing and things of that sort. It's stuff about like kind of how to disappoint and disagree with grace, right? Because you will disappoint people, guaranteed. We all do. Now, you might disappoint them because you dropped the ball. You might also disappoint them because you were fine, but they were unreasonable in what they wanted, right? So their problem has now become your problem if you let it. So how do you handle those kind of situations? And to sort of separate out, is this simply a thing of, we have different preferences here and that's okay? Or is it a thing of, I should have done it, but I messed it up. So yeah, okay, that one's actually on me. And if you've had a lot of years of untreated ADHD, you're going to have a lot of those. So it's easy to assume, and others will gladly join you in this assuming, that like, if we disagree, it's because there's a problem with you, so you should fix that. So how do you kind of stand your ground in those ways, right? Like, I mean, obviously be a good teammate, be a good partner, be a good whatever. But part of that is also taking care of yourself and knowing when and how to push back and how to set other people's expectations. And do you disclose your ADHD? If so, how do you do it? Do you disclose at work where it's a little bit more complicated? So I kind of talk about all of that whole side of it as well.
Can you give some maybe concrete examples of things that maybe some language that people can use when they agree to get something done at a certain time, and they know there's no way in hell they're going to be hitting that deadline.
Yep.
Like, how can they communicate that?
So the first thing is, at the time that you agreed to it in the first place, right? Did you take the time to say, hold on a sec, let me look at my schedule? By the way, do you have anything written in your schedule also? Right. So some of it is that, like, that's where it begins, right? Like, do you even know what you have to do? Do you feel like you can say no? Because if you don't feel like it's safe to say no, the person is setting you up to lie to them, right? Or they're at least setting up a false agreement, right? We seem to have this agreement that you're going to do this thing, but you're in your head, you're like, dude, no way. Like, I can't do this.
You're agreeing on a hope and a wish, but
Yes.
not based on any actual information on your calendar.
Right. Exactly. Right. There's no, oh, look at that. Tuesday afternoon, I've got some time. Yeah, let me put it down. So how does the decision get made in the first place? But then also, how does it get tracked, right? Do you somehow note it down? Do you have a plan for when it's going to happen? So there's that part as well. And perhaps it was a fine plan at the moment you agreed, but life happens. Things change, other more important things come up, right? So, like, to be able to take that to the person and say, I know I said I would get you this by Wednesday. Unfortunately, some other things came up. I really can't do Wednesday. That is much better received on Monday morning than it is at Tuesday, 4:59.
I always tell people that because I've often have struggled with that too, of letting someone know, like, ugh, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get this on time. And then I'm like, I have in the past, I've waited there. I'm like, oh, like I have to tell them now, but it's like I
Yes.
probably should have told them sooner, right?
Yeah.
So there it goes. My thought lost
Yeah.
it.
No, but this is totally a thing, right? And my line here is disappoint early, right? Because there's always that temptation. The avoidance is, if I don't say anything, a miracle will happen. Maybe the person will be abducted by aliens and they won't ask me about this thing I promised them, right?
When I'm on the receiving end, when someone communicates with me that they're not going to be able to get something done when they thought they were going to, I just appreciate that they're
Yeah.
communicating with me, right, about that. And so I always try to keep that in mind. I'm like, okay, like most people I think are reasonable, right? As long as they just communicate, like they're not going to be mad.
Yeah.
They just want to know what's
Yeah.
going on. There was a member of my community that needed me to fix something on with their membership. And I just kept like falling off my list. So like for like a week, I kept texting them like, okay, I didn't
Yeah.
get to it today, but like I'm gonna keep texting each day
Yeah.
just so you know it hasn't fallen off my list. And
Yeah.
it actually worked for me. Right. And they really appreciated it. Like, like people appreciate the communication. And I think once you sort of engage in that, then you are kind of getting a sense for, is this person reasonable or is this person actually toxic? And that's
Yes.
another issue.
Well, and the thing about it is, like, with this member, like, you showed good intentions, right? By letting them know, I haven't done it, but it's still important to me, right? My intentions are good, even though my follow through isn't as good as I would like, right? And people, like, intentions matter a lot. We hope for good outcomes, but often we'll settle for good intentions versus that guy's a jerk. He hasn't said anything. I think he doesn't care, right? So if you're not able to hit the bullseye the way that you should, then at least let the other person know. There's also other sort of ways of kind of cueing this, right? So for example, if, I don't know, you're in a meeting at work and someone says like, hey, could you take care of this? If you're just like, and you don't do anything and then you forget, right? What is the obvious assumption, right? Versus if you're like, yeah, hold on a sec, and you show them without being like fake about it, right? Like show them you're writing it down, right? And that way they know, oh, awesome, they're taking it seriously. I mean, there's also the other thing, right? Like with this member, you told them, I will let you know, but you could also do it the other way of like, hey, here's the thing, I will do my best to do this, but totally feel free to check in. Like definitely do not be shy. If you're worried or wondering, like definitely check in. And I've heard you talk about how to set up accountability, which is, I think, very smart.
Because that's leaning on codependence a little
Right.
bit.
So, but here's what I would say with that is, it is not their job to remind you. It is not their job to be your external memory source. But what is their job is they will be happier. It is their job to manage their own happiness. If they will be happier because they're not wondering and worrying, that's good for them. If a little bit of a reminder helps you get it done, that I think is worth it to them. Now, if you're always doing this, then it imbalances a relationship and then it is a problem, right? But if it's otherwise a balanced relationship,
Yeah.
and you got to be mindful of sort of power dynamics, if it's your boss versus like, if are you doing them a favor, or are they doing you a favor? So like, obviously there's nuances there, but it's sort of letting them know what they can do so that they will be happier with the
That
outcome.
makes sense. And it's, like all things productivity. It's a lab of experimentation, right? It's,
Mhm.
there's no one thing that's always going to work for anybody.
Absolutely not. And that is definitely like, that was one of the things that has sort of, I don't know how to say it was a driver of this, but these sort of over promises that's like the top 5 hacks, like, no, shut up. There's no top 5 hacks, right?
Right.
Or anytime anyone uses words like revolutionary or life changing, or like, no, you're some random person. You did not discover something unique that 4 or 5 billion people in the world never discovered for you. I saw this, some woman had a YouTube video where it was something like dopamine or whatever. And then in parentheses, it said life changing. And I was like, I want to curse right now, but I won't. But it's just like, no, not life changing. Not one possible way. Not at all. At best, interesting, right? You should put in parentheses, slightly interesting. That I would believe. But if you say life changing, like, I'm never clicking that link because you clearly have no idea what you're talking about, or you're a scammer.
Right. But like, how many people are that discerning on what they're clicking?
Mhm.
You know?
Right. But that's my point. Like, don't reward clickbait. Like,
Right.
don't buy in, like, don't believe it. Right. But there's the hope, right? And especially when you're struggling, right? Like, I do get it. Right. We all want that hope when things feel hopeless, but it's
Mhm.
not going to make you any better, right? Like, it won't. It just absolutely won't. Or any kind of guaranteed results. Like, that's another thing that makes me crazy. Like, no, it is not, like, nothing is guaranteed.
Well, Ari, like, that I guarantee in my coaching groups that at the end of the group that you're still going to have ADHD.
Right.
That's
That'll
what I
guarantee.
guarantee, right? It's
Right.
like, and it's just like, and I think when we're thinking about any kind of personal growth, whether it's productivity or, other related spaces, when you have ADHD, it is always going to feel like it's taking longer than you
Yes.
want it to. We are always going to want
Yes.
progress yesterday, right? But I think it's so helpful to, when we can, to zoom out our time horizon as much as we can. Because like when we're just looking at it from like week to week, it
Yes.
can often feel like our progress goes backwards, right? But when we look at it from year to year, that's when we can actually see like, oh, like that thing that used to always be an issue for me, like that hasn't even come up on the radar at all. Like I got that under control now.
Yeah.
And we're so quick to move on once we've like, kind of tackled something, and we forget to, and this is something that I had a
Yes.
coach that was kind of helped me see, like, if you need to learn how to celebrate your wins, because I just like to move on, right? And like, all right, next thing. It's like, oh yeah, that actually is really important to do that. Because it's easy to forget.
It absolutely, I actually, I've got a chapter on this, right? Like, notice your successes, surround yourself with good people, right? Because we have this sort of negativity bias that we definitely notice the things that don't
Yeah.
work out. And like, evolutionarily speaking and survival and whatever, like, that makes sense. But also, then what happens is, like, if you don't notice your successes, but you definitely notice the things that don't work out as well, you're going to feel like crap and like you're not making any progress, and you'll be less motivated to put in the work. So, like, yes, absolutely be intentional about noticing your successes and the gradual refinements. There's no like instant, like, moment of transformation that occurs. It's more like we get a little bit better and a little bit better. So notice that and surround yourself with people who also notice. And appreciate the rest of you, that's awesome. Even if things like arriving on time are not a superpower. And if there are people who are really much more negative, maybe you need to kind of reconsider how much of a starring role they play in your life.
I always love the expression that you can't change the people you're around, and you got to change the people you're around.
Yes. Yes. I love that. That is exactly it. The people who are around us and how they see things does have an effect on how we see ourselves. And whether it's your own expectations for change and improvement or other people's expectations for you, like how satisfied you are is not only what happens. Equally, the other half of it is your expectations or the other person's expectations. And if you expect too much, you will be disappointed. That doesn't mean you didn't do a good job. It's that you're hoping for too much.
Do you think that comes in from just like perfectionism and like where do you think that comes in from?
I mean, some of it I think is that. I think some of it, like there's a genuine hurt and a genuine desire, right? And I totally get that. I think like this is why people are vulnerable to this kind of like shady marketing that overpromises because people want to believe. And I get it why you want to believe, but nobody needs more disappointments, right? Like you are worse off for it. So having the right expectations and the idea that every day is a new day, right? There's new challenges, new struggles, but hopefully also new successes. And like I start out the book, like in the very beginning, I say every single thing in this book is going to be hard, right? Because it is. I'm setting the expectation, you know?
It's kind of funny. I wonder if you'd ever get any like analytics on the digital version of your book to see. Yep, and everyone stopped reading on page
Mhm.
2.
Right, exactly.
Which you did say it was a book you
Exactly.
can kind of jump around a lot in, right? Right.
Yes,
Which is
right.
nice
So,
for a lot of people.
but here's the thing, like the reason why I said that was because I want people to recognize, first of all the stuff that's easy is easy because you've already been doing it, right? That's why it's easy. You're well practiced and you're doing a bunch of other stuff that's already hard. So like you can do it. But I don't want you to sort of approach this or for one to approach whatever with these sort of ideas that it's supposed to be easy. And if it isn't, it means you're that much more screwed up, right? Other people, this is easy. Why is it so hard for me? Like, no, that's a lie. Just easy for nobody. Like, don't hold yourself to an impossible standard.
And I think that goes to the whole idea of like when we are comparing ourselves to others, we are comparing other
Mhm.
people's external, their outside with our
Yes.
internal, our inside, which
Yes.
is not a fair comparison.
No, you're comparing your worst to other people's best, you know?
It's so true. Just talking to someone about this, the idea, like social media influencers, like even when they're being really vulnerable on their social media channels, they are showing the
Right.
best
R-
version of their worst
Yeah,
self.
exactly.
Right? Like I mean, even I do that. Like I'm not like when life has become a dumpster fire in different phases of
Yeah.
life, like I haven't shown all of that. Like, 'cause that's not even like that's not professional, it's not healthy. Like I'll show a little bit of my shit when I'm like
Hmm.
I'm in a good space with that shit. But like I feel like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm getting through this. So I'm trying to show like, okay, like, yep, we all have challenges and we can still work through this. But like,
Yeah.
like when I just don't think it's
Yeah.
right to share all of the details of all the mess. 'Cause then you're just putting your shit on other people's
Yeah.
plate,
But it's also
right?
a thing of like, are you focusing on showing how amazing you are at your shit? Or are you, right? Because you're doing it for an audience, or are you actually dealing with it in a way that means something to you and maybe the people around you? Is it performative or is something genuinely
Mm.
happening there?
All right. So you've worked with many, many people, and I am sure that you have some really fun or interesting kind of out of the box things that you've heard from some clients and people that you've worked with on ways that they have sort of improved their own productivity.
Hmm.
Want to share some of those stories?
Here's one I'll share. So Peter Shankman told this story at the CHAD conference, I don't know, like 10 years ago or something. And so I'm not going to recommend this as a strategy for anybody, but so he had a book due, right? He needed to write a book, and his agent was pestering him, and he was basically lying to his agent. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting close. 4 chapters done, whatever." So what he did then was right before the thing was due, he booked a first class flight to like Hong Kong or something. And so I don't know, what is that, like a 14-hour flight or something? So he flew to Hong Kong first class and just, he had his outline, but he just like grinded out a whole bunch of words. He arrives in Hong Kong, he goes into the first class lounge, takes a shower, gets back on another plane back to the US. So he's coming through customs. He has no stamp on his passport. He didn't actually leave the airport, right? So the customs guys were like, okay, wait a second. Like, you're either a drug mule or like there's some shady, probably illegal thing going on. So they called his agent to ask if he had a book due and basically outed him to his agent, right? It's like border security was like calling them up. So like, I mean, it worked. He got most of his book written in 36 hours or something. But like, so like, that is a hell of a creative way to do it, right? Because he's sitting on a plane, there's nothing else to do, there's no Wi-Fi or anything. And so like, sometimes you need to kind of come up with some crazy ideas. Although actually, I'll share another story. This one is yours, right? And I love this one, that when your son was a baby and you had to get yourself up to bed, you set an alarm, not downstairs, but upstairs, where it'd wake up your baby and it'd wake up your wife, and then she would murder you. So like, yeah, that is exactly what, put some skin in the game.
I can't use that strategy though anymore, all right? Because now I'm divorced, and so it doesn't work for me anymore.
Right, and your son's a teenager, he wouldn't wake up anyway.
But I still do use the strategies of like engineering urgency, so I don't get stuck in my office late hours. Like typically once a week, usually on Wednesdays. That's my Chipotle day.
Nice.
And to make sure that I don't stay too late in my office, I will pre-order ahead of time
Ooh.
my Chipotle pickup.
Oh, dude,
right?
that's
'Cause it's
awesome.
like, yeah. And that has worked for me for a long
Oh
time.
man, that is such a good idea.
Right? Because I don't want a cold, burrito bowl. I want it right when it's coming out.
Now,
And they don't have to wait in line.
oh man, I love that. Okay, that's a really good idea. I got to go with that.
All right, what else? What are some other unique kind of productivity strategies you've seen people use?
So here's one. This is like a really old example, but I had a guy, long ago, I ran an adult ADHD support group through Northern Virginia, Chad. And there was a guy in there, he kind of was telling the group he would get caught up like screwing around on his computer at night and he'd just stay up too late. So what he did was he put the lights on a timer. So at, like at 10 o'clock, like click, it's like dark in the room. And everyone's like, whoa, dude, that's awesome. And he's like, yeah. Then it got really good at working in the dark.
Yep.
So, on the one hand, there's always that thing, right? Where there's a will, there's a way. But at least back to what we're saying, like there's now awareness, right? He planned ahead and there's now awareness, but you can still make a bad choice in the moment. But at least you're not unaware that 10 o'clock has come and gone. But then it becomes a matter of like integrity in a way of like, am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Also, by the way, maybe you just don't get on the computer at all or something, right? Maybe that's the better kind of way to do it. So like being honest with yourself about how things are likely to work out.
There was a client I was working with. And it was kind of had a very similar issue. They would get on their computer and then they were on there too late at night. And so we basically came up with a solution that they would leave their power charger at the office.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Because it's like when you're out of juice, you're done. Like,
yeah, not
you
debatable.
got nothing to plug into. Right. Because I used to play Nintendo Wii and I would plug it into a lamp timer. It's like all these things that it's just like, right? Because it's like, it's enough of, yes, could I start it back up? Yes. But like all I needed was an interrupt to get me out of that. Like,
yeah, it broke the game.
All right.
Bam. Yeah. Dude, that's nice. I like that
now
too.
I have all like the smart lights and everything, which is, it's like, it's helpful most of the time. Sometimes it's like, I just spent 5 minutes trying to turn my light on.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, exactly.
But
So,
so, I'm trying to think of, is there any other sort of newer novel productivity things that you've seen or heard
um,
or I don't know, anything like that?
I think it's really about it. I think it honestly, I feel like it comes down to the basics. It's like making things smooth and straightforward. And so things like this is like, so I was doing an ADHD evaluation on a guy. I was asking him how he does with getting things done and whatever. And he told this story about how his wife asked him to pay a bill. So he goes onto the bank website, like, crap, I don't have the password. So password reset, right? Anybody not know where this story is going here, right? Goes into his email in the 3.7 seconds it takes for the bank email to show up. He's somewhere else, doesn't pay the bill, right? So things like get a password manager, right? Not just only so like people don't hack your stuff, but also then you're just like, ding, 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 I'm in, right? It's just like one less transition. It's one less place to go off onto something else.
Yeah, I'm still amazed how many people don't use password managers.
Mm,
It's because it is. It's because if you don't have it, it requires so much quick task shit or attention shifting to like, yeah, you said go to the email, do the password reset, get the magic link, do the.
ugh.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's just more
you
headaches.
know,
It's just annoying. So yeah, like as much as you can set up these smooth kind of processes. And not only does it mean less places that you get sort of pinged and bumped off, but also like the more annoying something is, the more willpower it takes to force yourself to start it. So like finding ways to make some of the things, especially stuff you got to do again and again, to just like make it a little bit less painful to do it.
what was your favorite part of the book?
Mm, one of my favorite things. So I came up with this idea of having a bunch of illustrations. So at the top of every chapter, I thought of some like little comic or something. And Marcy Caldwell, who's a psychologist and presents in Our World, also was a fine arts major. She has the most beautiful slides. Like her slides, my slides are just like stupid bullet lists that I've had the same format since like 1937 or something. But hers are amazing, right? So she did the line drawings, right? And it was really fun kind of working with her on that. And I think it really kind of adds something to it. And also working with a cover designer to get just the right cover because it's an ADHD productivity book. God forbid it's some fucking boring button up, right? Like people will be burning my book in the street, right? So like
Didn't you complain about that with more attention less deficit that like you didn't like your cover or
someone
something?
else did. They're like, oh, that looks like a boring business meeting. I hate being in business meetings or something. So like I needed this to have the right cover, right? Especially if you're like looking at stuff online, right? You take one look and you're like, next. So like I needed a cover that obviously was serious, right? So it couldn't have been, I couldn't draw with crayons, right? But it had to also have enough of like a fun, kind of playful, right? So I worked with this awesome cover designer and we threw ideas around and then we like hit on the idea and we're like, oh, that's it. And then it just like little tweaky refinements and it just got better and better. I had the idea of having like a checklist, but on the last check, instead of like finishing the check, the pencil like wanders away on the page. And then I took a pencil and I like literally I bit all over it. And then I made my wife take her good camera and go out in the sunshine. And we took like a ridiculous number of pictures of this stupid pencil. And then I sent them to the graphic designer. And like, I just love the cover. I think it just is absolutely awesome.
So
So
those pencil bite marks are your actual bite
yes.
marks. That's
So
dedication.
if I die
Ari.
in a fiery plane crash, you can now identify my remains. And we're done. We'll end there.
You know, it's no better place to end. How can people learn more about you and find your book?
So best place is adultadhdbook.com. That's my kind of books and speaking website. I've got a bunch of information. I've got some chapters up on there, sample chapters that are different from the sample you can get off of Amazon or whatever. And just really psyched about this book. Like, I really feel good about it. I had a lot of fun writing it. And I think there's a lot of good stuff. And I love that now I have an excuse to come and hang out with folks like you and just talk some shop.
All right. Well, guys, so what's your next books going to be so I can find out what I'm going to have you on again?
Yeah. So for 2 books, I've been saying my next book is ADHD and self-esteem, but I think this time I mean it. I think actually this is, So like, how do you feel good about yourself? What is the psychology of ADHD? I think that's my next one.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Well, Ari, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully I'll get this episode out at some point.
Yeah, or not.
Or not.
Yeah.
Good intentions.
Right. We'll mark the date. Should I say the date today, and then people can see how productive you've been?
We're recording this on was it May 8th?
2027.
That'd be funny if it actually did take me that long, but it was. You'll be up in the queue there, Ari.
All right.
So thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. I totally appreciate it.
Before you go, I just want to remind you, productivity isn't just about the right tools or perfect systems. It's about finding ways to do what matters while protecting your energy and your relationships. You might feel behind. You might feel stuck, but you are not broken. You can do hard things, and you don't have to do them in the hardest way possible or do them alone. Whether that means working with me in our coaching groups, one-on-one, reaching out to your own communities, or just giving yourself permission to try again tomorrow. I hope you can keep showing up for yourself, and if you can, for each other. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.